when, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume, among the powers of the earth, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security, such as has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. We have come a very long way since July the 4th, 1776, the day that the United States has chosen to celebrate its independence and its declaration of free governance from the tyrant King George of Great Britain. The Declaration of Independence today, if it were read in the context of revolution, would be a radical, illegal document, just as it was then. Our founding fathers envisioned a time where it may become necessary for the American people, not just then, but now, to recognize the tyranny that is being envisioned and enforced upon them. Back in the beginning of March, it's the middle of March, say, when all of the shutdown crises were being fabricated, I began to tell people and warn people that July the 4th, 2020 was fast approaching, and it was going to not look at all like any other July 4th we have ever celebrated in modern American history. And here I sit, July the 4th, 2020, having read from the Declaration of Independence, on a day that celebrates that very declaration, telling you it looks nothing like it ever did before. American people, you have been kowtowed. You have been pushed into subservience. You have been subjugated to the usurpation of your power by those you have elected, all for the cause of safety and security. which you have none of at this time. Here in the state of Minnesota alone, our governor, the esteemed Commissar Walz, has threatened to start shutting down businesses again if we, the people, don't bow to the edicts of our local magistrates and to him. In places that were once liberty-minded, say Texas, mind you, the people are being ordered to wear face coverings to protect their culture and their people. Yet, no one can demonstrate scientifically, and remember this is supposed to be a science, that covering your face with a piece of cloth is going to protect anyone. We're being told when we can open our businesses and when we can close our businesses and how many people we can have in our businesses and how far apart we need to be when we're with each other in a business. Worse still, there are places in the United States that are telling people when they can and cannot gather for worship and how many people can gather and what they can do in the context of worship. And even worse, there are supposedly sound churches that are capitulating to this and using their flawed doctrinal approaches to justify bowing to the state. We're at that point again, ladies and gentlemen. We have lost our freedoms. We have lost our liberty. And yes, I know, Christians should not be the people who spend all of their time harping on and railing about their freedoms. But what I want people to understand is this is not just about Christians. And I have said this in other videos, and I have said this in other commentary. They're coming after everybody. You will bow to them, or you will be marginalized and eventually criminalized. And this looks like so many things right now. It's bowing to the social pressure about COVID-19 and your proper response. It's bowing to the societal pressure to relegate the culture of the United States to a far gone evil thing that needs to be replaced with the new Marxist mentality that is being foisted on us by Antifa and Black Lives Matter and other far left progressive Marxist groups. This country cannot survive under these two gluts of Marxism coming together, not opposed to one another, but merging together to drive this country to its knees. And so many of our elected servants across this country are bowing to both of these things and stripping away from the American people the very thing that once made this nation great. This isn't a white issue or a black issue. This isn't a people of color issue versus a white people issue. This is a independence, liberty-loving, freedom-producing, freedom-advocating issue. And on one side is the side of Marxist revolution and Marxist takeover, and on the other side is the side of liberty and resistance to tyranny. And tyranny is coming. It's here. It's just it doesn't look what the way people would say it should look if it's true tyranny. It's because we've been mollycoddled and educated in such a way that we accept everything that happens because, gosh darn it, they mean it for our good. But they don't. Governor Tim Walz doesn't mean anything for the good of the people of the state of Minnesota. Gavin Newsom doesn't mean anything for the good of the people of California. Cuomo doesn't mean anything good for the people of New York. De Blasio doesn't mean it for the good of the people of New York City. Pritzker doesn't mean it for the good of the people of Illinois. On and on and on. These are people who have put themselves into positions of power, and they are reluctant to relinquish it. And they will come up with any way they can to maintain that power. I'm not advocating for open rebellion. I'm not advocating for violence. I'm advocating for a return to embracing things like the Declaration of Independence. For the American people to rise up and demand that their rights, as they are enumerated in the Constitution, not given to us by the Constitution, but enumerated in the Constitution. It's time for us to rise up and say, we are taking back what you are attempting to strip from us. And as Christians, we need to do this in love for neighbor, not just love for self. And as the old story goes about Germany, and once again I've talked about this one as well, when asked why they didn't rise up, German Christians said, well, when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for the gypsies, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a gypsy. And when they came for any other number of small minority groups in Germany, I didn't say anything because I wasn't them. But when they came for me, there was no one left to stand for me. That's where we're at right now. They're coming, people. They're coming. They're going to come for you. If you're not towing the line, if you're not taking the right position, if you're not bowing to government edicts on COVID-19, if you're not willing to wear a mask in every place all the time, if you're not willing to take a vaccine for the good of the people, if you're not willing to admit your implicit bias, if you're not willing to admit your white fragility, if you're not willing to admit that you are systematically a racist because of the pigmentation and the melanin count of your skin, if you're not willing as a black man to bow to the whims of the other black men around you, you will be marginalized and you will be forced out of society and you will be stripped of the rights and privileges that are yours as an American citizen because you don't toe the line. This has nothing to do with American versus Russian or Chinese or German. This has nothing to do with white versus black, white versus native, white versus Hispanic or Mexican or any of those things. This has everything to do with, as I've said, liberty-loving, equality-pursuing, true American patriots being relegated to obscurity by a Marxist agenda. The very same people who hate everything that this country stands for and is enumerated in the Declaration of Independence and in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States of America will tell you that they're exercising their rights to say and do these things. Well, they have forced us into positions where we cannot celebrate the birth of a great nation. A nation that has done more for the world than all the other nations combined. And I'm not speaking on a religious scale here. I'm talking a political and societal scale. It is time for us to take back our nation. One nation under God. One nation established with a recognition for the rights of all people, not just the politically correct few. We need to take back our country. Fight them civilly. Make your arguments civilly. Do not back down when you are threatened. If your boss receives pressure to fire you because you don't toe the line, whether it be on masks or social justice or intersectionality, don't back down. If people try to silence you and warn you that your voice is too controversial, if the things you say are, should we say, okay, but boy, they sure are problematic or could be perceived as embarrassing, don't back down. Being a citizen of this country means sacrifice, and sometimes it means sacrificing for the sake of others' freedoms and liberties. Do not be pressed into a corner and pushed into silence. No one can strip you of the First Amendment rights that you have. No one, under any reason. Speak your mind. Do so with eloquence. Do so with civility. Do so with passion and with emotional force. Make your arguments. Give your apologetic. And when they shout you down, or when they threaten to dox you, or whatever it is that they're going to do, welcome it. But don't back down. Don't cave into right think. Allow your wrong think, if you will, to drive you to the right position, which is that of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And just because our elected officials are dictating that we can't even really celebrate the 4th of July, the spirit of the 4th of July exists in the American people still. Take back your country. Take back rule of this nation from those who have supplanted us, we the people. As always, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for being open-minded. Thanks for listening. I would ask that over here in the corner, somewhere on your screen, you hit the subscribe button. It's important, not for me, but because mainstream media, legacy media, isn't going to get the word out. They're not going to let people who don't toe the established line speak. So for the sake of liberty and for the sake of the defense of this nation, small little independent voices like mine need to be heard, especially the interviews. It's got very little to do with my commentary and a lot more to do with the interviews and the people who are affected when liberties are tread on. So once again, hit the subscribe button, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much.